doesn't bend towards justice on its own. It has to be organized for, fought for, died for. Our path forward is perilous, but it is also crystal clear. Unite to defeat Trump and his movement of racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, oligarchy. And then continue to fight against the unjust status quo that gave us Donald Trump to begin with.
Yes, it is Friday, October 30th, 2020. It is Halloween Eve, everyone. And that was the one, the only Sarah Innamorato at a Back to Blue rally last week with the burn. Car rally, fantastic. Gotta wonder if what 2020 has in store for us this Halloween. My guess is more trick, less treat. That's all I gotta say. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to that guy concerned about the effect of climate change on your pot supply, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On today's show, I met everybody. We're less than 4 days out, and I don't know about you, but I'm bugging out, man. Holy moly. If you are out of time, well, you are out of time to mail in your ballot, just in case you haven't been listening before. The Trump administration's efforts to slow down the mail are having an impact, especially in key Democratic areas in swing states. On Tuesday, David Becker, executive director of the Nonpartisan Center for Election Innovation and Research, told the Washington Post, and I quote, "If you haven't requested a mail ballot yet, it's too late." Ari Berman, the senior writer at Mother Jones and author of Give Us the Ballot, went even further, telling Democracy Now!, quote, "My message to voters in these states and other states is to drop your ballot off. It is too late to mail your ballots back in states like Wisconsin that have election day deadlines. And 30 states have a deadline of election day for when your ballot has to be received. But even if you live in a state like Pennsylvania and North Carolina, don't leave it to chance that your vote can be thrown out. This is absolutely critical advice, as more than 42 million out of the 92 million mail-in ballots that have been requested have not been returned as of Wednesday. As according to the Washington Post, the breakdown of that is 11 million are Democratic, 8 million are Republican, and 10 million unaffiliated. Brett Kavanaugh's opinion in this week's Supreme Court decision regarding the counting of mail-in ballots in Wisconsin seemed to be setting the stage for a repeat of the Supreme Court's intervention in Bush v. Gore. Now we have 3 Supreme Court justices who worked on Bush v. Gore in support of Bush. Crazy. This week saw an unprecedented number of legal actions by Republicans in states across the country to suppress voting, from Wisconsin to Iowa to North Carolina, and yes, right here in PA. The GOP is looking to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters. Meanwhile, Republicans are narrowing the early voting gap in several key states, including Florida, North Carolina, Iowa, and Nevada, according to CNN. In other words, not a time to sit on your dupa, time to get up and vote. According to a story at NPR this week, polling places in Iowa and in other states have been closed due to COVID-19. At least that's the official explanation. In Iowa, at least about 30% of the state's registered voters are affected by the closures. That translates about 670,000 voters. The CDC, by contrast, has recommended keeping open or increasing the number of existing polling places because of the pandemic. Seems like election officials are doing the opposite in some of these states. And according to Politico, and some good news this week, hackers stole about $2.3 million from the Wisconsin Republican Party. The count voted to re-electing Trump. Yes, I know. And another round of tapes released by Bob Woodward. Yeah, Bob Woodward, thanks once again, a self-promotion guy that he is. This time, it features Jared Kushner praising Trump's move to take the coronavirus response away from the doctors. That's a quote. And being a cheerleader for opening up. Jared also cites as one of Trump's greatest achievements as getting rid of the, quote, overconfident idiots, unquote, and replacing them with, quote, people who kind of know their place. Well, we've certainly seen that. And let's not forget the latest warning for the White House Coronavirus Task Force. This week, Dr. Anthony Fauci told CNBC, quote, "If things do not change, if they continue on the course we're on, there's going to be a whole lot of pain in this country with regard to additional cases and hospitalizations and deaths." Like the writing is literally on the wall. Today, a little closer to home, Representative Scott Perry rips off Sean Kitchen's photo to use in attack ads against Eugene DePasquale and the 10th Congressional District. The theft of intellectual property is one hell of a way to close out the campaign. Way to go there, Representative Scott Perry. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Let us vote that little out. And Representative Jordan Harris remains in the hot seat as Philly Power Research releases an infographic showing the tidal wave of cash, $600,000 that Harris took from Jeffrey Ross. Who's Jeffrey Ross, you ask? Still doesn't ring a bell yet? Well, you don't know. He's that libertarian billionaire who funds school privatization efforts. And this year, Yas and his major charter school PAC, Students First, is looking to take out Democrats in close races across the state. The infographic represents Stephen Caruso's reporting for the Pennsylvania Capital Star about Harris's cozy relationship with the charter schools. So on the one hand, you got Harris pocketing $600,000. On the other hand, you got the same organization looking to take out Democrats across the state.
It's a hell of a hedge.
Everyone's got to get paid, I guess, right?
It's one hell of a hedge.
It is. It is one hell of a hedge.
He is a hedge funder.
Oh, God. Well, more uprisings break out in Philadelphia after Philadelphia police murdered Walter Wallace Jr. during a mental health crisis he was having. In response to the uprisings, fascist U.S. Attorney General Bill McSwain charged a prominent Black Lives Matter activist who is now sitting in Allenwood Federal Penitentiary with federal arson charges. And yes, Governor Wolf called out the National Guard, so we got that too. On Thursday, a movement of Republican-controlled counties announced that they will not begin to canvass or count the votes until Wednesday, November 4th, with multiple Supreme Court justices thinking that vote counting should stop on election night. Who knows what's going to happen? That's a really critical thing, and we'll talk more about that in the show. It's really going to be important to unpack that a little bit. And Akhil Saval had an awesome article published in the New Republic this week. It was called "The Future of the Democratic Party is in Pennsylvania." It's about why a new liberal-left coalition could be the key to unlocking America's rural conservative vote. And, I don't think that was his subheading there, because I don't think it's just about rural conservative vote. It's more about repositioning or re-understanding the way that we deal with coalitions. Great stuff. In today's last call, the Hubble Telescope has given researchers exceptional images of the asteroid 16 Psyche. I think it's Psyche, but it might be Psyche. Which will be the destination of an unmanned NASA spacecraft to launch in 2022. The asteroid is of special interest because it seems to be largely made of metal, which is extraordinarily unusual. But that suggests it could have been a former planetary core. While the scientific mission seeks to uncover more knowledge of planetary formation, I'm sure our galactic capitalists are more interested in the metals. Their estimated worth is in the range of, are you ready for this? $10,000 quadrillion. That is a 1 followed by 19 zeros. Largely made up of iron and nickel. It's about the size of, I think they said, about the diameter of Massachusetts, this asteroid. New studies also show that water is more common on the moon than was previously thought, boosting, all sorts of plans for the settling of the moon. It turns out it's not just confined to the shadows of craters in the southern polar region. Researchers have now detected water at one of the largest craters in the sunlit region of the moon. There you go. And today, we got Free Will Brewing has got some great releases this week. We got DDH, Love Letter from the 90s, and that is a hazy IPA. We got Garcia's Forest, another hazy IPA, which is, I think, wonderful for this time of year. And we got a brand new hazy IPA. It's all haze this week, everybody. Why not? Should be hazy going into this frickin' election season. Whatever. But this one is called Parish. It's a brand new hazy IPA. It's available right now in the online stores in their tap room. It's looks like it's really good. I have not had it yet, but they say it has notes of ripe tropical fruit, raspberry, and dry citrusy white wine. All of this is available at the freewillbrewing.store, freewillbrewing.store. You can purchase it to pick up at the store, or right at the brewery in Percy, or if you like it better, you can have it shipped directly to your home. And the greatest thing, it's shipped to any place in Pennsylvania and a Pennsylvania address. And if you order over $85 worth of stuff, you'll get shipping for free. And we've got an Out the Coop Live. I hope people caught our Out the Coop Live from this past week with Tara Zarinsky. Man, she was great. And I am so looking forward. I got my fingers crossed. I did a little fanboy afterwards and kind of got some of her merch, right? So I got to maybe put the Zarinsky hat on in our PA hat. So this week, but she is really has an opportunity to turn that district from Northampton County, the 138, the PA State House 138, has to flip it from red to blue. It was a great conversation. But this week coming up, we have got our first ever pre-election roundtable on Monday's Out to Coop Live. And joining me will be our own Sean Kitchen. It'll also be Shayna Rose, the climate justice activist and host of the podcast Sustaining with Shayna. And finally, last but not least, Leo Atkinson, who is the new co-chair of the Lehigh Valley DSA. And there's a backstory that I hope we get to talk about on Monday about Leo Atkinson making some moves up there this past week, one of the town councils, but we'll get to that. We'll be giving our final impressions of the election, but more importantly, we'll be talking about the organizing that needs to be done as soon as the last polling place is closed. Join us Monday, November 2nd at 10:30 a.m. We'll be broadcasting live on Podbean and streaming live on YouTube. If you want to call into the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just download the Podbean app and join live Monday morning. Also, no better time than the present to listen to The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And make sure to subscribe to Rick's daily podcast on iTunes, Podbeans, wherever you get your podcasts. If you guys are listening right now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. If you're listening to on your podcast, give us a review. If you're listening on iTunes, you listen on your iPod, you're listening on iTunes. Make sure you give us that 5-star rating. Leave us a little comment. It helps to get the show out. It helps promote the show. Share it on social media. Do what you can. Do what your part. Doesn't cost a thing. Just takes a couple seconds to leave us a review. Give us that 5-star rating and shoot this out to social media so we can expand this podcast. And if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. You can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We're expanding our network, as you can see, and we are preparing for the fight for the remainder of this hellish year that is 2020. And we are all into that fight, but we need you. We're not asking you to break the bank. We're asking you to become a member for as little as a little of the price of good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Sean, man, we're right up to it.
How the fuck are you doing?
Man, I am. I don't even know how I'm doing. I swear to God, I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm frustrated as all hell because of the persistence of like coronavirus. But I gotta say I'm feeling a little good with my fingers crossed going into this election on Tuesday.
And I called my boss the other night at 9:30 at night asking for words of encouragement. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't happen.
No.
But I mean, we're all on edge with this. We had a really good phone conversation this morning. Malcolm Kenyatta was a special guest on our weekly comms call with everyone in the state, and he put it best. He's like, guys, you are history. Pennsylvania's going to determine this, and
right.
We are on the precipice of history. Get ready to go out there and go fight. And I think I kind of need that little pep talk this morning, not more like a rah rah go get 'em type speech that
Yeah.
I think we're gonna need a bunch of that over the next couple weeks because it's not gonna just stop on election night. It's going to be rolling in after that, and we have to prepare ourselves and feel good about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
It's mentally prepare ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think what you said is that, like when you say you're on edge, and that we're also in, on the precipice of a historic moment, where Pennsylvania is going to decide the future, and we have unprecedented attempts at voter suppression happening at the same time. And I mean, it tells you how insane this is that we've, on the one hand, you've got, say, polling, say, for example, coming out of Wisconsin that shows that, Biden is ahead by a couple points, and then the Washington Post releases this poll that says he's up by 12 points, right?
Yeah.
That just makes me say, okay, I'm not looking at the polls because the only thing that is going to matter is that there's a massive turnout and an election. And I'm nervous about, I got to say, this is the other part of it. I'm nervous about two related things especially when we're talking specifically in Pennsylvania. On the one, well, let me say three things. Number one, just the number of votes. Maybe say four things. The number one, the number of votes that have still yet to come in that were mail-in ballots that were requested, and we're seeing these kind of mail slowdowns. The second thing has to do with these kind of potential reemergence of Supreme Court cases, where they're wanting to kind of sequester the votes that come in after kind of the closing of the polls. Number three has to do with we're setting records of COVID-19 cases in the state daily now. And number four has to do with the kind of the uprisings that we're seeing in Philadelphia after the murder of yet another African-American man in the city. So, I mean, it's I feel like we're in a kind of tinderbox. So when I talk about the historic moment of Pennsylvania, I'm saying all that stuff is happening right
and
now.
We are actively planning demonstrations for next Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and however long it takes to make sure that all these votes get counted. We must demand that every vote gets counted, and that includes mail-in ballots. There is a movement of red counties across the state that don't want to that will start opening ballots on Thursday, but are not going to start counting, or going to be opening ballots on Tuesday, but they're not going to be counting ballots, physically counting ballots until Wednesday.
Right, and this is really important because we saw that the Supreme Court case that came back, because we had a situation that's similar to kind of what was going on in Wisconsin, right, where there's a question about what would happen with these votes that arrived, say, after the election. And the Supreme Court basically said, whatever, we're not going to touch this one. But some justices like Brett Kavanaugh basically wrote things in their kind of side opinions or concurrence opinions that they believe that
counting ballots stops at 11:59 on election night. Period.
Right, which is insane. Because right now, let's say let's put this back in 2016 or 2012 or 2000 even for that matter. Ballots are never finished. You're never finished counting ballots on election night. When we have people that are calling elections, what the calls you used to get in the media, those calls are projections, right? Ballots are never counted. And even we saw in 2000, right, back in Bush v. Gore, right, is that Brett Kavanaugh was one of those people making the arguments to wait for the overseas military ballots to all come in, to give it extra days, right? Because you recognize that happens, right? That is just a function of being in a democracy.
And elections are not certified by state governments until weeks after the election.
Exactly.
County government, there's a whole entire process of board of elections on the county level to certify their results. This usually takes 3 or 4 weeks to certify results after an election. We usually know the results within a couple days, but elections aren't technically certified until the end, until 3 or 4 weeks after the process. And the whole entire game plan for the Republicans. So there's it's
making my head hurt already.
Might be happening. No, there's that's happening, but they're also, the game plan for Republicans is to drag this out into the middle of December, so they can appoint their own electors in Pennsylvania. And I'll tell you one thing: on Tuesday, if Florida flips, takes the pressure off a bit.
Yeah, like I said, what I said before the show, I want Florida
flips,
+1. Texas flips, then we're done. Then we can then this is going to be a live show. and it's going to be a little bit raucous, like on our live feed. Because I'm saying, I want anybody who wants to join. I will set it up an open Zoom call, and we can celebrate. Because if Texas goes, then that's really, really, really positive.
Or if like Arizona, like Florida,
Florida and Arizona. That Arizona's the other one I'm thinking. Like if we had Florida, if we get Florida and Arizona,
if Arizona
for sure,
flips, it's yeah.
Then I think it's good.
I think all signs are looking that Arizona's flipping. I don't like it's still a toss-up state, but like you think about Kristen Sinema, won in 2018, the first like Democratic senator from that. And Martha McSally is running again in Arizona, who's extremely unpopular against Mark Kelly, who is Gabby Gifford's husband. And
right,
man, like think about that arc for Mark Kelly, like going from being an astronaut with Gabby Giffords and like the assassination attempt on her, to then becoming a U.S. senator, on the precipice of becoming U.S. senator within 8 years of this happening.
Yeah, and that's what you do after you retire from being an astronaut. How's that? I mean, yes. I mean, seriously.
Things locally. We are on the verge of flipping the House here in Pennsylvania.
Oh my God. Wait, before we go to that, I really want to talk about this, but let me just say one more thing about Texas, because this is like, if you look at some of the, like, literally, I could start.
Texas legislature might flip.
Yes, I know. This is like, it was one more. I feel like I'm about to pull my hair out right now, because it's like it's like I could almost taste this stuff.
If the Texas House flips, gerrymandering, boom, not happening in Texas.
Totally, right?
Like, but Republicans will not have majority in the House at all in the 2030s if the Texas House flips.
Right, but here's one of the things. It's like, this is the thing that drives me. That sends me like not through the roof. That's not the right word. It just makes me so anxious. And like, I know I keep on talking to myself that, okay, don't get excited here, because look, there's so many variables here. So you got Texas right now, like literally it's within striking distance. As Sean said, you could potentially flip the House. This is crazy, right? And then they could take, like, there's a shot. I mean, I don't want to say that it's probable at this point. There's a shot, but at the same time, you've got one of the worst coronavirus outbreaks in El Paso, right, in the country, right, in El Paso. And that's what kind of where Beto O'Rourke is from, right? That you have got lots of mobilizing and organizing there. What impact is that going to have? Who the hell knows? You had another a case that went through to basically they said there were drop-off ballots. Drop-off balloting was limited to 1 per county, right? And there's counties in Texas that are the size of Rhode Island, right? So you have 1 drop-off ballot, right? So who the hell knows? You got voter suppression. You've got the coronavirus kind of going crazy. You've got.
We're also expecting record turnout this year.
Record turnout. So.
Also you think about it, like here in Pennsylvania, right? Just to look at the numbers. So right now, like 75% of all ballots that went out to Democrats have been returned, right? Which is a great number if you think about it. The benchmark is 80%. In the primary, 80% of all ballots that were sent out to Democrats were returned in the general election. And the number of ballots that have been returned already, Democrats have like a 1.1 million edge in ballots returned over Republicans.
Keep our fingers crossed. I'm telling you, it's like
and that's the reason why they don't want to count these ballots.
Yep.
But no, I mean, like, let's go back to Texas. I mean, in Texas, I think the House is flipping. From all reports, it looks like the House is flipping. If the Texas House flips, Republicans will not be holding majority in the U.S. House at all in the 2020s.
I can't even tell you, like, how freaking huge is that?
Right, like that's just not going to happen. They're not getting. If the Pennsylvania House flips, imagine.
So okay, let's talk about that.
I mean, like, we're just not. I guess we're not following.
No. Let's look. I figured today. Look, I mean, this voter suppression and possibly election stuff is going to be right top, like front and center. And we'll have another side conversation at some point, like, about, because I think that we've been floating in this direction anyways in terms of format, and I kind of like it. But anyways, that's a off-air conversation. But talk to me about the PA State House.
I think it's going to flip. I
What,
mean,
what if you had to do the Sean Kitchen prediction at this point? Like, what do you think the chances are that happening? Like realistically,
man, they need 9 seats. Like a good night, everyone's thinking between 7 and 12 is going to be a good night. Or 7 and 13. If we can get like, I mean, that's all we need is not net 9 seats.
wow.
I mean, I think Brittany Rodas out here is going to win. I was out door knocking for her on Sunday.
Nice.
Third, little side note, third door in. Guy opened up. Was like, "Are you a Democrat?" Yeah. He's like, "Fuck you."
Hey, happy Halloween, buddy.
I mean, there's just nothing you can do but laugh at that. Like,
right.
And I put on Facebook, someone's like, "Man, third, that's like you're 3 doors in. Congratulations." But I talked to a lot of people. Was able to talk to voters. A lot of them have already voted. I talked to like 10 or 15 out of like the doors that like people already dropped off their ballots or mailing in their ballots, and like everyone who I was able to have a small conversation with loves Brittany Rodas out there. And she's awesome. She's a friend of mine. Knew her through the Young Democrats. We met at the convention, Young Dems conference last year in Indianapolis. She ran for that seat against Andy Lewis. And yeah, I mean, she's a House staffer, more than qualified for this seat. Won't be spreading COVID throughout the House.
Yeah, how about that, right?
Yeah. And there were a couple people who were like undecided. And the one guy we were canvassing with, TJ, pretty much said, well, your state rep, like, is the person who like caused an outbreak within the House and wasn't wearing a mask. And automatically, you're like, yeah, give us the packet. We're supporting Brittany.
There you go. That's what you like to hear.
I mean, we knocked on a couple doors where people were unaffiliated voters, and they thought they weren't registered. And
really?
When we told them that they were registered, they weren't just registered with a party; they were just unaffiliated. So they're not primary voters, but like, there was a couple people who like, yeah, I didn't know this, and they're going to go vote for Brittany Rodas. So
Man,
I mean, like,
fantastic.
and it's awesome seeing energy like that. This is my first time ever door knocking. I mean, I feel like Bucks County seats there might be like a little bit harder to flip.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be tough. Wait, I feel I have to wait. Let me just grab this real quick. I feel since we're having this conversation here, I'll put my swag on. Here you go. There you go. I got a little Tara Zarinsky hat on. This is a tribute to Tara.
So, fun fact: Tara was an environmentalist.
Yep.
With the anti-fracking movement.
Yep.
And she was someone I met at Kutztown with like the Berks Gas Truth conferences and stuff like that. Back in like 2010, 2011. And yeah, it's amazing seeing like Tara, someone who I don't personally know, but like been able to follow them on social media throughout the years, go from being like a county official or a local official and possibly into taking this seat.
Well, I think. Look, I think yes, and one of the reasons,
like hearing Tara speak as like one of the first time candidates at the PA Stands Up conference,
yeah,
like she absolutely just killed it.
Look,
like her 2 minutes.
She's great. I mean, like I said, everybody's listening to this. If you have not listened to if you did not listen to our show, our live show on Monday with her, you should really check it out because it was. I'm telling you, she is just fantastic, and why? I mean, she's not my district, right? She's not my representative. She wouldn't be my representative. But you've heard me over the years talk about how important I feel the Lehigh Valley is to the future of Pennsylvania. You heard me when I talked to Rick Krajewski 2 weeks ago on Out to Coop Live. That's one of the things that because was emphasizing with him too. So that's my one piece of advice, right? Is like the Lehigh Valley needs to be the next target. And look, and what Tara represents in so many ways, right, is the like you said, she's been involved with these organizations for a long time, with the environmental union, the resistance to the Penny's pipeline. She's been kind of active with the kind of the union movements. She has been an adjunct faculty member too, as well. With all that implies, I'm not going to go into it now because everybody knows like what that means, right, in terms of the struggle and what that means in terms of labor, and her platforms right, have been kind of developed in part in consultation with these social movements, with these groups on the ground. So that means you send her to Harrisburg. You're also sending that power to Harrisburg too, and that's what we're seeing across the state, right? With these races,
with the Democrats that are coming in, like that PA Stands Up conference and the photos I got from that is just like almost like a historic who's who moment of the Pennsylvania progressive movement. Like in those photos, Nikhil Saval, Rick Krajewski, Tara Zirinsky, Emily Kincaid, Sarah Nimrata, Elizabeth Feather, Daniel Otten, like all these people all these candidates, Anid Santiago, who came close to beating Pete Schweier in Allentown as an insurgent candidate. Yep. Like there are like all these fabulous people who are speaking there, and it's like, Shanna Danielson, like it's.
Let me just we should pause just for a second.
Like
right?
The incoming crop of Democrats
exactly
in 2020 is going to be way more progressive than I think the incoming crop of Democrats from 2018, from this 2018 class.
I can't even look. I mean,
this
Sarah
is like
Innamorato, Summer Lee, and Elizabeth Fiedler broke the glass.
Malcolm Kenyatta.
And Malcolm Kenyatta,
Malcolm Kenyatta.
They broke the freaking glass, right? When on possibility, right? I think that it's funny how this stuff works. There's this book. It's we read it in one of my classes right now. It's like this right here. It's called This is an Uprising, right? This is for everybody out there. Right, Mark Engler and Paul Engler's book about how nonviolent revolt is shaping the 21st century, and they do a bunch of stuff in there about there's one part they call it's like the whirlwind, right? It's like so much of what happens in political organizing, right, and community-based organizing and labor organizing is like really not sexy stuff, right? It's like it's a slog through the muck. Right,
it's grinding.
It's grinding, and nobody gives a shit about what you're doing, and they don't care, right? And it's easy to get burned out, right? I think, frankly, one of the things that I've been dealing with, just in terms of like my own union organizing, union work that I've done, is having to grapple with the fact, I was burned to the freak out, and I'm able to kind of start to come around that other way. Anyways, that's another side story. But the point I want to make there was that. One of the things that Engler and Engler talk about there is that there's these moments where they almost appear to come out of nowhere, but they're not, right? They've been the function of years and years of organizing. But when it happens, right, when that glass is broken, it can feel like, holy shit. It's like, it wasn't just like, okay, now you can walk through. No. There was actually like a mountain of water behind that glass, and it's broken, and now the floodgates are open. Right. And that's kind of almost the way it feels like that, in 2018, we saw that glass broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then now, once you've shown people that what's possible.
The primary victors in this.
Yep.
And not only the primary people, but the people who are running right now. We're not just sending establishment Democrats.
No, that's what I mean. It's like incredible.
Yeah.
That's why that piece, I'm telling you, that piece by Nikhil Saval in the New Republic is totally worth reading. And part of what he does in that too is he retells the story about getting from right before the 2016 election and the Bernie Sanders campaign. And if anybody ever doubts the effect that the Bernie Sanders campaign had on what is happening in Pennsylvania and what is happening across this country, you're just kidding yourself.
And I also I've been seeing it. I've been really grateful to have a up close view of this over the past couple of years. But the progressive infrastructure that is being laid out across the state right now is really something to watch. We have these weekly conference calls with Commonwealth Communications, and that's like a clearinghouse that brings together all of our progressive groups in the state. Really important infrastructure piece. You have PA Stands Up stepping up. There are groups that are being established right now, and this infrastructure is being laid out right now to where we actually have the capacity to fight back against shenanigans in this state, over the next few weeks and month or so.
Well, in a certain
And
kind
it's-
of like this kind of I was almost going to call it like an awakening, but it's not like it's not like that. But it's like this very explicit like sense that like groups like PA Stand Up, like DSA, like
and then also all the connections that were built over the summer with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Exactly. That was the next
And first time activists.
right.
And,
And all these groups right now, I mean, it's clear that they are movement first, right? Like, so in other words, it's not like, okay, we organize for the election, then we all go away. No, these are folks who are like, nope, like the election is kind of like a moment in our timeline.
we've been talking about the day after the
The
election.
day after, yep.
For about a month now. And it's
Man.
I mean, I would not, I'm saying for like the past month or so, I've been like depressed. Like I've been just burned out, depressed, and but I feel like it's now like the anxiety is okay. It's here. Like it's almost like I'm coming out of that like burnout phase at like the right time. And it's, you know what I mean? It's just like the next couple weeks.
I'm telling you, because it's there, it's within our grasp, right? It's in our grasp, to turn the tide, right? And I think, and I can't tell you, I don't think I've ever been more excited about state level politics in my life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that, and part of that is, again, it has everything to do with these movements on the ground that have been doing this spade work, and have basically said, you know what? Instead of just like let's having this kind of popularity contest or the kind of the celebrity contest at the national level, at the presidential level, but we're going to actually kind of like work in our communities and build power right here, and we're going to have got cool things to say, not just like elect me because like I'm better than the other one, but we've actually got an agenda. We can actually do something, and you could feel, oh God, you can just taste it. It's like right there. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, it's like, so, okay, so there's a possibility of taking back the House, right? So, I mean, you said we need 9 seats, and then the range that you gave is between 7 and 12, maybe 13. So in other words, we got to be right in the middle.
I say we get, okay, so I think we get 10 plus.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm confident.
You're confident?
I think with the massive voter turnout, I think within my congressional district, like 40,000 votes have been returned within the PA 10.
Wow.
Which is just absolutely insane. Like, or it might be even more than that right now, like within the PA 10. Like 60 or 70,000 or 80,000 votes have already been handed in. Like, we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. We were knocking doors on Republicans last week and leaving literature on the doors of Republicans, because that's how far down the lists that like we're getting into with these campaigns, with people who have already voted and stuff like that.
Wow.
We knocked on a committee woman's door and she was like, "What are you doing here? Like, we're knocking doors out here." Like, that's in a Harrisburg suburb. I mean, it shows you about the fucking committee.
Yeah. Well, they're coming for me. They're showing up my door.
I feel like it's actually interesting talking to TJ, who was going around with, and I guess he said like the tradition of knocking doors with the Democratic Party didn't really start or get rejuvenated until Obama. And people were just like, boom, we're knocking on doors like everywhere. And it seems like now out here, that is the culture of like, we're knocking on every door in the district.
Well, it went like this. It started, you're absolutely right about Obama, right? Huge update. There was such an emphasis when in the Clinton campaign, right? The Clinton campaign, that went off a cliff, right? Because they thought they'd do this. But at that same time, right, during that election season, you had Bernie Sanders campaign, which were doing the door knocking. Right. And you saw that again this next time around. And then, what was some of the first things that happened after
2018? My door was knocked like 10 times.
Exactly. And after the Hillary Clinton loss, right, one of the things that DSA did, right, because remember, that's where we saw this, that we saw, well, this is not 20, yeah, after 2016. One of the things that DSA did is they saw their kind of numbers kind of spiking, right? They used the door knocking, right, as the way to go out and talk to people about Medicare for all, about actually getting things passed at the local councils, right? In Bethlehem, PA, right? The DSA and a coalition of other groups there have been getting things passed the city council. Yes, again, they're only resolutions in part, but they're getting support from the community because they're actually talking to people, knocking doors. So I mean, you look at that stuff that is incredible. And I mean,
yeah,
if that is baked in at this point, and again, I'd say, you have generations of you have generations of people coming up that this is their experience of politics, which is incredible.
And I mean, like, talking on our phone calls, like, Eric was out in Wisconsin, and they're like in 2010 and 2011 with the uprising, and their like motto was knock on every door.
Yep.
No door gets left unknocked. Like, I mean, like, and that's the type of mentality it's like that's coming into the realm, and like being able to use the Van data set, knock on all of our high propensity Democratic doors, and then also knock on some like Republican doors who are leaners and stuff like that. It's I mean, like, I'm looking forward to it. I think George Scott wins. I'm hoping he wins. I hope Eugene wins. If George and Eugene wins, I am looking forward to them absolutely just rebuilding the party out here.
Well, I think that's what'll happen if those two, if they win. I think that's a game changer.
Like, we're going to be rebuilding the party. We're going to kick Eric Papenfuss out of office. Okay, so I'll get into what he did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, go for it.
He went on the podcast and attacked George Scott unpromptedly for having Brad Kaplinski as a campaign manager in 2018. And now Republicans are using that as a vicious attack ad. DeSantis is just a disgraceful ad, linking him pretty much that he knowingly hired a child pedophile, and because Brad got arrested for child pornography, and like the mayor took this attack unpromptedly, brought it up, and kind of like left the innuendo out there that like George knew about like Brad's misdeeds that went beyond like some of the stupid stuff that Brad has done before, like, and so Eric Papenfuss is on the fucking chopping block after that.
Good. Because
he is buddy with people like Zaborny. Like, he has John DeSantis, campaign manager, on contract for the city of Harrisburg for $60,000 a year to do lobbying with the House.
There we go.
So I mean, like, whole lot of shit's gonna get cleaned out if these two people win.
I'm telling you. Well, this is one of the things that again, I don't want to keep on harping back at Tara Zarinsky's campaign, but one of the things that's at the forefront of her campaign, which is why I'm bringing up what you're saying, this is about Pennsylvania being rated towards the top of kind of the most corrupt states, right, like all the time, and being one of her key campaign stuff. This is the kind of stuff that that you've been kind of like focused on for a while. We saw this with March on Harrisburg. March on Harrisburg has been calling attention to the corruption in Pennsylvania. And this is an opportunity.
Pennsylvania is by far the most corrupt state.
Nah, look, come on. I grew up in New York, man. You got nothing on us, so.
Okay, I mean, I think like the
it's a different kind of corruption. Let me put it this way.
It's just like
in Pennsylvania, you don't end up with your legs broken. That's all I'm saying.
It's just a wink and a nod, and like the corruption on the county levels in Pennsylvania is just like,
yes, exactly,
is just fucking through the roof, like ridiculous.
Well, it's like institutionalized to such a degree in Pennsylvania that it's remarkable. It really is.
It's just like it. Yeah, it is ingrained in every aspect, and it's not just Philadelphia that's corrupt. Like, some of the reddest counties in this state are some of the most corrupt institutions around.
Yeah, of course, man. It's a nice way to kind of fill your pockets and kind of maintain your power and not have to do a hell of a lot
and suppress the election.
Yep, and suppress the election.
Which is
it's crazy, man.
Do we want to talk about this?
What's that?
Do we want to talk about that? What happened in Cumberland County yesterday? Or
let's save that for the second part, because we'll get into that specific, because that is absolutely critical. But well, actually, you know what? I got an idea. Let's actually close out our first section with that. So why don't you talk a little about what happened in Cumberland County? I got something over on the printer that I'm going to grab. Well, you start talking about what's going on in Cumberland County, and then we'll close out with it. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So what happened in Cumberland County this past weekend or this past week? The commissioners came out and announced in a press announced they will not be counting the ballots on election day. That they're going to wait until Wednesday to count the ballots. When the law clearly states that you can start opening ballots at 7 a.m. on Tuesday, start counting them on 7 a.m. on Tuesday, but you cannot record any votes until 8 p.m. that night. And Cumberland County and a bunch of other counties are waiting to start counting the ballots until the following day. So, and no, I mean, like, this is all Republican Board of Elections. These are Republican counties who did not take preparing for this seriously. There were grants available. Like J.J. Abbott was on there yesterday, said, like, hey, grants were available for Cumberland County to have up to par election counting infrastructure, and you didn't do it. And like, this is happening across the state in some counties. But if President Trump puts an injunction, like all ballots stop counted at 11:59 on Tuesday election night, this may cause a very serious legal issue within the state of Pennsylvania, and this is what we're preparing for.
Well, and my understanding,
count every vote,
right, and my understanding there too as well is that this was the importance of that Wisconsin case that the Supreme Court ultimately kind of didn't really kind of weigh in on, right? They didn't kind of really come in and say make this kind of final determinate ruling, but what was cited in that, like, remember, I don't want to go too far into the weeds here, but back in 2000 in the Bush v. Gore case, right, the Supreme Court that ultimately handed the election to,
and this is like Bush v. Gore on steroids, right,
but so you have that ultimately handed Bush the election in 2000, and of course Gore didn't fight either, but that's a whole other ballgame. But the more important point is, like, they said specifically in that ruling that this is not to be cited as precedent in the future. It is a one-time thing. Well, Brett Kavanaugh cited it, right? And it's been referenced in here. And there were issues raised in I forget who wrote the major opinion. Who wrote the major opinion in that?
Was it Roberts?
It wasn't Roberts. I'm not sure. Maybe it was. I can't remember who wrote the book, but it was in there. It was introduced. That we can't, something along the language of something like this. That basically, well, look, you don't know like what the ballots are going to be looking like, kind of like for themselves. Come back to us like after the election, right? Is basically what they were saying. They're basically saying like, look, this is not something that's appropriate for to take up right now because you can't prove the harm that has already been done, right? Something along those lines. So, but they basically signaled to folks that if we have these two sets of ballots coming in, then we can consider it after the election. So what you're finding is that you have these sequestering of votes, right? You want to have GOP is trying to put this kind of clear line between what are quote unquote like acceptable ballots and what ones that they believe should be kind of excluded from that. So that's why this Cumberland County stuff and what is going on there is so critical, because they're setting it up to make it sure they've already pre-sorted those ballots. Right?
And well, like the Attorney General's office has agreed to do that and directed every county to sequester votes that come in the following day.
So that's at the county level.
No, Josh Shapiro.
Josh Shapiro did this.
Josh Shapiro has issued, pretty much like has issued directives for every county to sequester votes that come in after, so they can still count the votes that are there and they can't get mixed. So like that's the important part of this. So like counties can't mix these ballots together, and like then you spoil a whole entire county's election of mail-in ballots.
Yeah, but then the flip side of that though is that now you're basically ready. They're basically preparing for the legal challenge of whether to count those votes or not.
Yeah,
because if those votes are, so here's what I'm anticipating is going to happen is that we're going to see that like that night, right? Let's play out a couple scenarios. Election night that you have, what do they call it? Like the red mirage, right?
Yeah.
Because that you have a lot of people that it looks like you're going to have a higher percentage of Republicans are going to be voting on election day. Higher percentage of Democrats have sent in kind of mail-in ballots, right? Higher percentage does not mean all or nothing. Let's be clear, everybody, right? But it could be the case that at the end of the night, right? Once 11:59, that the Trump could be ahead in the day of voting, right, and the ballots that they have kind of like on hand, right, or that they have counted by that time, right, and then you have the rest of those ballots. So at that point, right, if there's an attempt to kind of to go forward and continue and
counting
to continue to count, immediately a lawsuit is gonna be filed at that point. So to put a halt in this. So I mean, and Sean has said this before, right? That the game plan here for the GOP is to kind of draw this process out as long as possible, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's reasonable,
and that's why we have to be ready to be out
right
in the streets Wednesday, demanding every ballot get counted. And that, like Wednesday and Thursday, the response from voters on Wednesday and Thursday is going to set the tone for the next month and a half.
Yep, cannot underestimate that.
Like,
understate
listen,
that.
that slide deck that was released by the AFL-CIO was a legitimate slide deck. This isn't like some like
remind people what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was like AFL-CIO had a slide deck that was leaked to the media preparing for this type of situation that's going to happen here in Pennsylvania, with strikes, with mobilizing unions, and this is not bluster. In 2000, this was a case study on 2000, and Al Gore refused to have activists mobilizing in the streets and demanding that these votes get counted in Florida. This looked into what happened in Florida, and this is what we're not doing.
Right.
We're not going to be sitting on our hands.
Right, because let's remember what the Republicans did in Florida in 2000 is that, we had these kind of Brooks Brother riots is kind of what they were called, because basically you had Republican operatives that were pulled from all over the country and they were sent to election offices. So you literally had these, these like quote unquote activists, right, dressed up in these like top-notch suits going into election office and literally banging on the windows, right, to stop the count and things like this. And the media, of course, picked right up on that. And it, to anybody who's not paying close attention, who know who those folks are, they're thinking like, oh my God, people are really pissed off about this. And they put all this pressure. This is like Republicans do this amazing job of working the ref, right, about putting pressure upon people that are making decisions so that they are kind of like caught off guard and they don't want to offend those people. So they end up making decisions that are more in the favor of the people putting the most pressure on. This is what the AFL-CIO and that slide deck comes out and says, no. This time around, we're not ceding that ground. This is all hands on deck and we're going to be out there.
And this is about like rolling strikes. This is about, strikes throughout the state. Or throughout the regions in this country. Is about, I think that Pennsylvania, we may have a nationwide mobilization if this shit happens in Pennsylvania. And this, we're preparing for this around the country.
Yeah,
I don't mean we, but like the progressive movement is
right.
Sam Cedars' podcast yesterday.
I was just about to say that, right? You have Joshua Kahn Russell, right, who was on and talking about a whole bunch of the scenarios that have been getting kind of played out. And I would strongly recommend people take a listen to what he's saying, because you're hearing. He's kind of gaming out, saying the range of scenarios about kind of the series of escalations that kind of are going to be necessary if there's an attempt to steal the election. And again, we could, that's why you talk about it as an escalation, right? If anybody does any organizing, how important it is to escalate, right?
And yesterday at the Cumberland County, we saw this escalation where constituents demanded their county commissioners to sign on the statements that they will count every vote. And that they will, and the commissioner said, no, we won't stop counting votes until the Supreme Court says so. He said that in a public meeting.
There you go.
So, citizens, constituents are already putting that pressure on their local officials now.
Yep.
In response to this, and that is the first steps of the escalation. And if they refuse, then we have a protest, and they still won't relent. We have a bigger protest, and then we have massive rallies.
Right, and this is what's going to be absolutely critical here, right? This is why this is going to be so important, that it's going to be, that people are plugged in, they're paying attention, because the kind of protests, if you if you look back at what the kind of organizing has been taking place during the Trump administration, okay, and before, but let's just keep it for that for a minute, about targeting, say, for example, when you have these protests, Black Lives Matter protests that kind of erupt, guess what happens? People just don't kind of like go to Harrisburg or go to Philadelphia to this stuff. No, there's solidarity protests and local protests that are happening everywhere. Right, indivisible. Right at the beginning of the Trump administration, that's exactly what they were doing. They say you're organizing at the local level. What DSA did is they went into, they organized in their communities and looked at local city councils, look at local county councils, like things like this. That's the same kind of thing that's going to have to happen here. It's not just going to be everybody get on buses and go to Harrisburg. It's going to be in your communities. The pressure is going to have to be felt. Right. Yeah. So this is what you can expect is like the day after the election is that you're going to find out, you're going to look for information. You're going to ask that question. It's like, where are people gathering? Where are the protests happening today? Because there's going to be one near you. I could guarantee it.
Yeah.
So let me just kind of close out with this. I printed this out before the show. I just forgot to grab it beforehand, and it's a good place to kind of close out with, because I know some folks who kind of tune into our show that are not from Pennsylvania. We did a lot of Pennsylvania heavy stuff right at the get-go, but this kind of puts us in this context about how important, or not even how important, how real the attempts at voter suppression are around the country. So last night on Chris Hayes' show, All In with Chris Hayes, he went through a kind of a condensed list of some. This is not like, inclusive of every example, but some of the most blatant attempts that are happening around the country right now at voter suppression. Right. So I just want to kind of give you a sense of these things. Right. So here's a list of several of them. Right. This is just a sampling. Okay. This is just this week. Supreme Court rules that Wisconsin cannot count mail-in ballots received after Election Day. Supreme Court, this is number 2, Supreme Court blocks an order allowing Alabama voters to cast their ballots curbside. Number 3, Supreme Court rules mail-in ballots in South Carolina must have a witness's signature. Number 4, Pennsylvania Republicans ask Supreme Court to reverse state court ruling allowing ballots that arrive up to 3 days after Election Day to be counted. Next one. North Carolina Republicans and the Trump campaign asked Supreme Court to block extension of deadline to receive mail-in ballots. Next, Trump campaign sues to limit the use of drop boxes in Pennsylvania. Next, Trump campaign and Republicans in Nevada sue to stop vote counting in the Las Vegas area over signature checks. Next, Texas top court upholds governor's policy allowing only one drop-off box per county. Next, Texas Republicans sue to void thousands of ballots cast by voters in their cars. Next, Republicans in Michigan sue to block ruling allowing voters to choose anyone to deliver their absentee ballots and requiring absentee ballots that arrive late to be counted. Next, Trump campaign and Republicans sue to limit absentee voting in Iowa and make it harder for counties to process absentee ballot applications. That is a sampling.
Also, one that forgot to happen
Minnesota
locally,
last night.
Linda Kearns, who is the Trump campaign lawyer in Philadelphia and who is the co-founder of this blog called Broad and Liberty. Broad and Liberty is a Commonwealth Foundation sponsored outlet. She was caught putting cameras up on drop boxes throughout Philadelphia and Delaware counties as a way to suppress the vote and go after voters in that area. And she was highlighted in the New York Times and the AP about that.
This is crazy. And just last night,
we also have yesterday morning, Citizens Alliance Pennsylvania, Dark Money Group in Pennsylvania, sent out an email to all their members across the state demanding electors be appointed by the vote counts of Election Day, and that's it. This is an organization that gets the same money from Americans for Prosperity, Commonwealth Foundation. This might be a fringe group, but don't think these people aren't fucking going to do this.
No, exactly. Here's another example. This could potentially affect us in Pennsylvania, which is why this one is so critical. This is last night a ruling came down in Minnesota. Minnesota did the same kind of thing that we had, right? We were going to extend the amount of time, right, there that mail-in ballots can be counted, right? So that if it's postmark, right, on election day or before election day, right? Minnesota you can have like a week-long window for these ballots to come in, right, to do that. Federal appeals court last night ruled that mailed ballots must be received by election day in Minnesota. That is, that is going to the Supreme Court, which means that Pennsylvania's 3-day window might disappear.
It's going to get nuked.
So look, this is like, again, this is why I say there is no, if you got a mail-in ballot, you didn't bring it back, you need to get to a drop box. You need to get to
the only way we win is a blowout.
That it's exactly. It's like you can count on the fact that's why I wanted to read all this stuff, right? It's like I wanted to read it not just to say, look, there is voting in my lifetime. I cannot recall a time where voting felt more critical than ever, to actually have a mass turnout and a blowout. Because what's on even more than 2016, as horrible as the election of Trump was, this election not only is it going to talk about potentially putting the neo-fascist back in the White House, you're talking about like attempts to fundamentally undercut democratic processes at the core level, at the level of voting. That will got to guarantee minority rule for the foreseeable future, right? Right now, we already have minoritarian rule, right, by kind of like a small group of these kind of Republicans, because honor system and all this other stuff. They're talking and gerrymandering and all this stuff. This would cut that. This is a process of disenfranchisement to bring us back before the Voting Rights Act was even kind of like conceived of. So, folks. Vote. Get out there. Make sure that if you haven't already, make sure you've got your plan. Make sure that you're either going on election day. We also want to remind you, if you decide you have a mail-in ballot, right? You don't know where a drop-in box, and you decide you're going to go there and vote on election day, we would strongly recommend you get it to a drop box and not wait till election day. If you go on election day, you have to bring all of your materials, all the envelopes from that mail-in ballot. You would have to bring it to the ballot box. Right, and you're gonna have to surrender that ballot. You're gonna have to basically kind of vote provisionally, right? And that is not ideal because there's no guarantee, as Ari Berman has been saying on shows all week, that is no guarantee that your vote is going to get counted. So get it to the drop box and do it before election day. Do it today if you can, right? This is I cannot overemphasize how important this election is for that reason. So, I mean, look, and it's so far beyond whether or not you think Joe Biden should be. At this point, I swear to God, I could care less about like Joe Biden as the person or that whole conversation that happens about he's still,
fuck your moral arguments.
I care less. It's like if we're going to take back
a true leftist will vote for Joe Biden next week. Like that's just about it.
Just go. Yeah, I mean, just get over yourself, right? But more important, right? What I worry about more than anything else is people who say like, well, I don't really like Joe Biden, so I'm not going to vote this year. And guess what? All those other issues that we've been talking about the flipping the House and all single rig.
I know a couple of people who never voted in their lives, are in their 60s, registered as a Democrat and voted by mail as a Democrat for Joe Biden. First time ever. They sat out in 2016 and didn't vote for Trump. Like imagine sitting out for Trump.
Yep.
And that motivation, it makes you to go out and vote this year for the first time ever.
And the thing is, they voted for Joe Biden. Guess what? They didn't vote just for Joe Biden. They voted for other people on that ballot. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what the guy said. And like is one of Roxbury's friends, and Roxbury's like, oh yeah, explaining to him the data system's like, dude, you're gonna. He's like, as soon as I signed up, I got like all these Democratic phone calls, and Roxbury's like, dude, you got plugged right into the system.
Yeah, exactly.
He's explaining the analytic sides. Like there's like 98% certainty you sign up for a ballot and you became a Democrat. There's like a 99% chance you're voting for Biden, and they know that, and they're chasing down the ballots.
Yep.
So, all right, I think we're good for this
segment. Yeah, indeed. All right, so everybody, thank you for kind of tuning in, and thank you for and I'll say this, and thank you all of you who are doing the work on the ground every single day. Is that I cannot tell you the level of hope that it gives me to see that kind of organizing that's going on today. Thank you so much. But this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Want to remind you that you can become a patron of this show by going to patreon.com/rcpress. You can become a patron of Raging Chicken and help support this show, help support this podcast, helps expand it. I want to remind everybody before we hit to the break too as well, on our show on Monday, Out to Coop Live at 10:30 a.m., we've got a roundtable discussion of our pre-election kind of final takes with a great group of panelists. Go to tune in Out to Coop Live on Monday. Look for the announcements about that too as well. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back here, we're going to talk about, representatives who pose as thieves in the middle of the night. Here we go. This is Kevin Mahoney. We'll be back right after this quick break. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. Sorry for the extra long pause there today, everybody, but guess what? I guess every moment is an opportunity to organize and strategize. That's all I can say. It seems like I can't tell you how many conversations I've had this week where it's been in between meetings or like having a side like breakout session with somebody or something like on Zoom or something that turns into this like little, okay, we talked about that. Now, what about like, how do we actually do X, Y, and Z? Let's talk about this then. So here it is. And I think that, I guess one of the big things is at this point is like, who do you actually call to kind of like enforce intellectual theft laws that are kind of in the state, right? Especially when it's done by your representative, your congressional representative. Is that my understanding?
Yes. So yesterday, like we have this like massive, we have this shitpost caucus group on Twitter, and someone in the shitpost caucus said, I'm here in Penn State and I just got this Scott Perry ad, great targeting. I'm like 100 miles away from the district. And as soon as I saw the ad, I was like, holy shit, that's my fucking photo he stole. Like that piece of shit. Like that. Yeah. I was just like, for background, it's my photo from, it's of Eugene D. Pasquale, like leaning knuckles down on a table or hands down on a table, talking to people at the, at Shanna Daniels' launch party. And it was like a great portrait shot because I rented that 35 millimeter lens, like that Holy Grail lens. It's like $2,000.
Yeah, I remember.
That I will never be able to buy.
Sean's little baby. He was like,
well, I might be able to get it at some point next year. So let's see how that goes. But
yeah.
I got my goals. But no, I mean, it's like the balls it takes to steal from a photographer is just like is astounding. Or the lack of like perception. Like you don't like think this is actually going to get caught. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, but especially like they must have known that was your photo.
I would think so.
I mean, it's like, the only way that they don't know that is, well, one, you either have like super incompetent people that are just kind of pulling crap off, which tells you a lot about what their process looks like. But otherwise, I mean, like, you're the one who posted that.
Yeah.
And you're the one who posted it as like, hey, I did this photo shoot at this, at this launch party, and look, here's some of my photos. I mean, that's what's astounding me, because like I'm sorry, but there's if there's people on Scott Perry's campaign that are pulling your photos down and don't know who the hell you are, then they're ridiculous. I mean, then you basically hired the wrong damn people, because they've got to know. So that's what made it just kind of like,
and it's also like you did it without thinking of getting caught, like
totally,
or the repercussions. I mean, like the ads have like ran at this point. There's a whole entire ad library of him using my fucking photos, and it's like, you piece of shit, like, you fucking asshole, you stole from a constituent.
Well, that's why I'm so glad you actually posted all that stuff. Like, posted the ads and say, "This is my this is my freaking photo," and Scott Perry stole it.
Yeah,
right.
Which, I mean, it shows you like how much of a deadbeat he is. You know, he never had a fucking private sector job in his life. You know, he has always sucked off the teats of the nanny state with his state representative job, with his,
which is the irony,
time in the military, with his time in Congress. He has multiple pensions. Like,
right, and the irony is that he's basically saying that he's using that to make the claims about De Pasquale, right? Yeah. About Eugene, right? He's basically using. I'm like, wait, you're the guy, right? I mean, whatever.
Never had a private sector job in your life. Yeah, so
whatever, man. Well, there you go.
Then also there is the other photo that I am very proud of.
Yes, the other photo. I'm sorry, I should have put that in the show notes today too as well.
So like, you know, Shanna Danielson, who listens to the show, you know, shout out to Shanna. I love the photo that, you know, from that, like that photo from Shanna, from her launch party that, you know, I took, you know, it became what I envisioned it to become, right? Like, this was the photo we sent out to Penn Live the day after the press conference. So that photo then becomes the stock photo for Penn Live whenever there's a Shanna Danielson story. Mm-hmm. And then Shanna's been using that photo to mobilize, to fundraise. And then she used that photo for her fundraiser to flip the Senate. And then Bernie Sanders retweeted that link with my photo in it. And no, I mean, it's awesome, like, having that get out there.
Well, and just so everybody, just so we're crystal clear on that, right? So the difference between these two scenarios
is, right? Shanna paid for it.
Well, and she wanted Sean there. Sean was aware that Sean was taking the picture for the purpose for her to use in her campaign, right? Which is what you're supposed to do, right? Yes. Not just like scroll the web and look for kind of something you can pull down. But yeah, I mean, you know, I love that photo from the get. I think that was so much captured, so much about her campaign too as well, and so much about that decision to basically make this strong race and the kind of support that she was getting. I mean, it was like that photo was excellent. Yeah,
and it's been used to mobilize and fundraise off of, and you know, I'm glad Shanna has got her money's worth out of it. I'm sure she's raised like 10 or 100-fold. Which, no offense, but like, no, I mean, like, but no, like, that is the like purpose of doing this, though.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, is the purpose of this business. Like, right. You know, like, yeah, it's a great return on investment. It is how, like, you know, I talk to Roxbury about this all the time. Like, I'm actually going to spend some time pulling photos from the campaign parties I took, mapping them out, how they were used in the media and public, and then also you know, putting a portfolio together with it, or a case study on it, like, and the reach and the stuff that was used and monetize off of it, of course. But no, I mean, like,
yes, I mean, what would doing this stuff be without the grift, right, Sean? I mean,
hey, you know what? Grifters don't produce results.
Yeah.
Speaking of grifters, Jordan Harrison.
Sorry.
So Philly Power Research did a really good infographic.
Yeah, I just, and this is one of the reasons I don't want to make sure we talked about this again. And we talked about this, you know, on last week's show, or maybe even 2 weeks show, or maybe even the show before that, or maybe probably every other show for the past year. But no, it's like periodically you have Twitter battles that erupt, right? Like with Sean's being like, Jordan Harris is the one that right goes out there. But I want to made sure we give the shout out to Philly Power Research this week, because they took this research about the funding, you know, kind of the dark money stuff that's coming, particularly from Jeffrey Yass.
They got money from all of the campaign finance reports for the Commonwealth Leaders Fund, for the Students First, for the Commonwealth Children's Choice Fund, all the dark money groups associated with Jeffrey Yass, and just like showed on a chart, like graphically, how this guy is just dumping millions of dollars into like these different PACs, like, and how he's like the sole proprietor of this person who is trying to he is the sole person that's trying to swing or keep Republicans in power in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Is Jeffrey Yass. And this like infographic pretty much like shows his web of money and where it goes. And at the top, there's a big, thick blue line that goes right from Jeffrey Yass through Students First to Jordan Harris.
Yep.
And other than the millions of dollars that was given out this year, like Jordan Harris's contribution, that $600,000 he got, may actually be the single largest contribution any legislator received this year. And he's not even having a fucking opponent.
Yeah, and
this is all about buying influence in his leadership election.
Yep, and he defends it to no end. If you read that,
damn right I'm taking that money.
Yeah, he's damn right I'm taking that money. If you read Stephen Caruso's piece that came out of Pennsylvania Capital Star last week, and he was kind of challenged on that, he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take that money. Of course, we're going to take the money. I'm not going to leave that on the table." Right? Again, looking ahead. Primary challenges coming down the road. I don't know. Might be a nice idea to be thinking about. Yes, you're going to be up against the dark money of Jeffrey Yass if you're going to challenge Jordan Harris.
I'm sure the Commonwealth Foundation will give him a job afterwards.
Of course they will. Of course they will. Of course they will.
He'll have a nice 6-figure salary working for the Commonwealth Foundation at some point.
Right. So help Jordan Harris find his the next chapter of his life's book by searching out some maybe a really awesome progressive challenger to Jordan Harris down there because what here. So anyways, just saying, I'm just putting that out there just in case. So cool. So one of the things that we got to talk about is I talked about this a little at the top of the show, but we've got
another murder
in the midst here. We've got another murder of an African American man, right? Walter Wallace Jr., who captured on film once again. People yelling and screaming for him. He had a knife, right? So again, we know what this is going to happen and what happens on this conservative media. They're saying, well, he was a threat and blah blah blah. The police were standing way away from him. They weren't even kind of near him at that point, and they were like, "Shoot him!" Right, and then they take him down with something like at least a dozen bullets. Yeah. And his mother was screaming for them to stop, pleading for them to stop. Wondered why is it that when they were calling for an ambulance. They were calling for an ambulance, and they got cops,
and the cops weren't even made aware. The dispatcher didn't even tell the cops of the mental health crisis.
Exactly.
All they say is we have a black man with a knife.
Right. Exactly.
It's pretty much.
And then questions are come up. People are saying, well, why didn't they even not that I think this is a good thing, but why didn't they use a taser? Why did they go right to shooting him? He didn't have a gun in his hand. Right. He had a knife. They didn't even shoot it. They went right to lethal force. And so we have uprisings, justifiably so. And now you've got the same dynamic, the same media story that's going on about, well, they're rioting and that's not rioting. And even you got, this is where, I don't want to really get on this big side topic about you got Kamala Harris and Biden oh yeah, but that's a crime to riot and blah, blah, blah. The point is, if we don't know, right, from Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, right, riots are the voice of the unheard. Right? When there is no other outlets, this is what happens. Right? The only way to solve that is to stop killing black people. Right? That's how you solve it. And
is to listen to the community and stop killing black people.
Exactly. And this is
reforming the police.
Exactly.
And fundamentally changing how we police departments operate.
And this is such a perfect example too, as well, about when you're talking about the defunding the police argument, the idea that you're taking resources that have been just allocated to police departments and then shifting them to where they need to be, so that in a case like this, when that dispatcher is on the phone, the only person to call right now is that you call the cops. Oh yeah, you got this guy, somebody needs help. So what do? You send him out to police, and the police are going to deal with it. What the police do. But you want to have that option. Mental health? Okay, boop, we're going to press this button, and we're going to send these kind of mental health experts that are going to be there, right, in order to de-escalate and get this guy help, right? shifting to what we say, this is how you protect a community, is you send the appropriate resources that are there, right? That the fact that, and again, this is where there used to be a time when the police would just say, look, they're asking us to do too much. And I agree with that argument, right?
And the police don't even want to be called to these mental health.
That's exactly.
They don't even want to deal with it institutionally or like on a personal level.
Yep. And in this context right now, they seem like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to kill them. And that's where we are right now. So,
I mean, and like Wolf, was requested to bring in the National Guard. He couldn't say no to that because like the request was made by the mayor. And now we're going to have National Guard in Philadelphia overseeing this election.
Oh, Jesus.
Like that could be a good thing because the lawlessness of the Philadelphia Police Department and, their close connections to alt-right organizations such as the Proud Boys that have been well documented. There's going to be so there's going to be a whole lot of shit happening.
I just look at it like this, is that we are at a point in our country, right, where the National Guard is going to be present around kind of our elections because of the
Philadelphia police can't keep their fucking act together.
Yeah. And historically, right? Not just right now.
Yeah.
But this is everything coming to a head. And we are at that point where you need National Guard troops just to be able to kind of
protect the protesters.
Exactly. It's just it's insane to me.
Yeah.
But again, it's not insane, right? It's not insane to me because this has been happening all year long.
And I mean, there's just no moral fortitude coming from Mayor Kenney. It seems like he's just mailed it in. He thinks he's running for governor in a couple of years.
Yeah, good luck with that.
His political career is over. Commissioner Outlaw is just a complete failure, an abject failure. Just is a total and abject failure. I don't think there's anything else to say but that. So I mean, what else can I say?
Yeah,
it's just yeah.
It's where we're at. Got to say, for those folks who are watching on YouTube or things like this, watching it afterwards, I'm sorry. It looks like we had a couple kind of really kind of quick drops, so I hope you didn't miss too much. I'll definitely check that on the flip side. I think it's a byproduct of having two kids, kind of doing online schooling today too as well. So, welcome to my world, right? Over there. But there we have it. We already talked about the stuff that we have in Cumberland County and about the canvas. I want to. Are there other things you want to talk about with in Pennsylvania? The other stuff that's going on specifically we haven't gotten to.
No, not really. I'm trying to think.
There's so much.
It's calm before the storm at this point.
Yeah. So I would just say everybody. I would like to prepare everybody as you're getting ready for election. I know. Look, everybody wants this to be over, right? Everybody wants to get past it. This is probably going to be one of the most stressful few days for a lot of you out there, right? I know it is going to be for me. It's going to be for my family. It's going to be for everybody. And we just got to look. You want to do your best to be kind to each other, right? Give yourself that space to know that, okay, yes, you are feeling stressful and that it is okay. You don't need to resolve that right now. It's not going to be able to be resolved because it's external.
Cast that vote. People are going to be out there intimidating voters, but cast it anyway. We're expecting record turnout this year. People like to talk a good game, especially on these white nationalist sides. There might be poll watchers in Philadelphia. There might be poll watchers in other parts of the state, but you know what? Fuck them. Cast that vote. And cast that vote in spite, and don't let them scare you.
That's right. And if you need to go to the polls, you go to the polls. You got other people around that have to cast their vote too as well. Go with them, right? Talk to the other voters. I know that we have to do social distancing. That has to be, but you can still talk to other folks in line, and you remember that. They're doing some great job down in Philadelphia. What's it called, a Joy to the Vote or something like this, where they're actually bringing out. They have dancers or people who are going around with kind of musicians and things like this into the long lines that have been out there thus far. Just as a way to kind of remind people that we're in this together, and we are in this together. So the stress is going to be there. So be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. Make your plan to go vote. Don't let it go to the last minute. And then like start looking around for organizations near you that are going to prepare for what comes the day after, right? Because we're going to need that. One of the things we'll close out this segment with today is that I just want to give yet another shout out to this really good piece in the New Republic called by Nikhil Saval, who is, of course, a socialist from Philadelphia, right?
Bad things come from Philly.
There you go. And in this piece, the piece is called "The Future of the Democratic Party is in Pennsylvania: Why a Liberal Left Coalition Could Be the Key to Unlocking America's Rural Conservative Vote." And really, he comes at it, this article, gives a little kind of background about, say, the state of Pennsylvania, because you're writing to a much broader audience at this point. Gives a little background of kind of what his political trajectory, right? Kind of from working on the Bernie Sanders campaign, and even before that, as kind of an activist, and then kind of coming up and then getting involved, and then deciding to run for office, and then seeing the kind of successes that are happening right now in Pennsylvania. Right, when you're kind of moving forward with a kind of strong, say, progressive kind of agenda, and you're linking struggles, right? Not like settling for, well, we've got a lot of Democrats in the urban areas, so that's where we're going to stay there, as we kind of hear that narrative, but actually reaching out and doing the work, or reaching out to communities that have been disaffected by politics in general. I mentioned this on the podcast before, is that there's only maybe three times in history, where modern history, at least, that Pennsylvania has kind of voted kind of in a different direction than the national vote when it comes to the presidential election. And one of those times had to do when you had the populists running, right? When you actually had a kind of strong populist campaign that was a working class politics, and understood as working class as not just those who were in the factories and urban areas, but were also farmers and in kind of rural areas, right? People who were being left out of the system, the have-nots, to put it in those terms. And this is absolutely kind of amazing stuff. And so what I hope to do, right now it's just not the time, but I'm going to reach out to Nikhil Saval too as well, so we can get him to come on the podcast and out to Coop Live to talk a little bit about that piece. And as part of a series, when we kind of, after this election, about looking forward, right, and kind of setting out the agenda for the next round, because we're at this part of momentum. Yeah, go ahead.
A couple new polls just came across my tweet deck.
Let's hear it.
I follow Political polls on Twitter, so it's just like it's always constantly updating. A lot of them are like outliers and stuff like that, or internals get released, but some you get like a Rasmussen, or not Rasmussen, but like one of those more like well-known polls every day, a couple times a day. PPP, Public Polling Policy Center, they just Democratic firm. It's highly accurate,
but it's really good. Yeah, there's a good polling outfit. Yep.
One of the better polling outfits in the country. Regardless of their partisanship. They have Pennsylvania +7 and Florida +7.
Florida +7?
Yeah, 52-45.
Wow.
Biden.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
That's crazy. Well,
and if this, like, a couple of the pollsters who I follow on Twitter are also thinking that the Florida legislature flips. The Florida State House flips Democrat.
Wow.
So,
well, we'll put that in. We'll pin that to the bulletin board, right, as a piece of information. But don't let that anybody for a second make me that you should sit this one out. Because you can't.
If the Florida and Texas House legislators flip, Republicans are going to be in a legislative minority in the House for the next 40 years.
Well, hey. Let's make that happen. Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be right back with this week's last call, but want to thank you all for tuning in. Kind of stay strong, everybody out there. We'll be back right after this quick break. Welcome back to Raging Chickens Out the Coop podcast. And this is our last call. We have beer news, we have space news, wherever else we feel like talking about. Two cool things on the space front. As I mentioned here, there is the Hubble Telescope has been, there's some images that were released. There's exceptional images of this asteroid, say 16 Psyche, however you say it. It just kind of blew my mind, right? That there's an asteroid. They were able to kind of do this imaging on it. They used some kind of like ultraviolet imaging system on it to figure out its composition. And the thing is mostly made up of iron and nickel. Which is extraordinarily unusual. So that some of the kind of, the hypotheses at this point are that it may have been like a protoplanet, right? A planet that was in the process of kind of forming, didn't quite form, maybe had a collision with another large body that was also in the middle of forming towards the early stages of the formation of the universe, or at least our solar system. And then just kind of the core had already kind of started to form, and then it's just out there as an asteroid. So all metal. Scientists, when they first were kind of realizing what the composition of this stuff was back in, I want to say 2017, when they were asked about it, they said, look, this is what it's made of. And they said, well, how much would that, somebody was asking them, how much would that come in? Are you going to mine it or whatever? And they're like, look, we're not interested. We're going to be out there for 2 years. We're going to be examining this. We're going to coming back. And you look at that and say, okay, yeah, the scientists are not interested in doing that. But once they image this asteroid, right, this may be that first target for an asteroid mining proposition. We might see this as being one of the first examples of an attempt to make a case, or an attempt to do some mining where you're kind of bringing this back to Earth. I've for years I've followed some of these asteroid mining schemes, right? Some of them are just total grifts. You'll say that, but there are some kind of legit companies that are trying to, these are not publicly traded companies or anything like this. They're basically ones that are saying, okay, we're trying to develop, say, a technology for for the long haul, for be able to kind of go out and
doing
mine
actual
asteroids.
Research and develop it.
Exactly, right? And who are actually looking at exactly this. And so there's even examples where they're saying, okay, we're going to take this asteroid and we're going to tow it, right, back to kind of close to kind of Earth, maybe kind of close to the moon now, so we're going to settle on the moon. But the fact that you have something like this, and they're costing it out already, just is like, those are kind of, flashing red lights. There you go. Here we go, folks, is what I've been talking about. This is the launch of, galactic capitalism in something fierce. I've just been reading some great articles on this stuff too as well. So, but we're not going to get into all that today. We got too much other stuff on our minds. But just for that figure, that asteroid like that, right, in current pricing of iron and nickel, right, that would be worth roughly $10,000 quadrillion. Right, that's a 1 followed by 19 zeros. And if you can't tell me that there aren't some of these billionaires, right, these space billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and a whole bunch of other folks you've never heard their names for, but they are out there, that doesn't look like kind of a worthwhile risk to kind of throw chunks of change at, you're crazy. That's where we're going. The other stuff that was pretty cool, they did some imaging of for the moon, because again, we're getting close to NASA has set, the Artemis program is basically set 2024 as the target date to get folks back to the moon. My guess is they're not going to hit that target, but we'll put that aside for a second. But that's, again, a target tends to focus resources. So now they're looking at landing sites and where you're going to put this. And if you're talking about any permanent settlement on the moon, water is going to be one of the most critical things, not just for drinking, right, but also as a component for rocket fuel, and a bunch of other stuff. And what they originally thought is that, they found before evidence of water on the moon on the dark side or in the southern polar region that was mostly out of the sunlight, so that the, solar winds and stuff couldn't kind of evaporate the water and get rid of it. So they found little pockets of ice there. Now they have evidence, even in the sunlit regions, there is water. Right, and they're starting to think that, okay, well, maybe it's not even just the shadows of these craters, but potentially kind of merge within the actual regolith of if I got that word right, but the actual the soil on the moon. So we're going to see something here. So it's even some of these original research is just fascinating, just to what they're learning when they start looking closely once again. I should say, I didn't put this in the show notes, but I just finished watching the second season of Mars, which you can watch it on Netflix. I'd highly recommend it for if you just want to kind of get your head. You don't want to get too far away from politics, right? Too far away from what's going on in the world, but you want actually a little bit of a diversion. It's a really fantastic thing, especially for the kind of stuff that I've been talking about on this podcast about, say, galactic capitalism and stuff, and the emergence of this and why we should be paying attention to this. Is basically what it is. It's a collaboration with National Geographic, right? And Netflix. I don't know if Netflix is one of the original partners in it, but basically the show is a combination of interviews with people today, right? Who are from scientists, from scholars, from psychologists talking about kind of isolation and psychologists, interviewing people to say what is actually happening here on our planet now and some of the concerns. And then there's a fictional story about the first kind of settlers to Mars, right? And the first project. And so you have this back and forth. And what they did a really fantastic job at, in my view, is that what they're projecting out in the future are some of the very same tensions that I've talked about on the show that we see kind of presently between, like, say, scientific pursuit and say the corporate, like the money that's kind of involved with this, and then what happens to the kind of distortion of governance, what is happening to the competing challenges that are kind of being faced in this kind of potential future. Does an absolutely fantastic job of it. And in the second season, the first season came out several years ago. I didn't even know they were going to do a second season for a while because it seemed to disappear. But it came out fairly recently. And in this, for example, they're talking squarely about climate change and Arctic drilling. Naomi Klein is kind of interviewed as kind of one of the people that are part of this project. And then you're seeing these tensions play out kind of like, it's like in the 2040s, right? Kind of down the road, and seeing what that plays out. In my view, the way I've talked about science fiction on this podcast before, it's the way of projecting out current tendencies as a way to kind of reflect back upon the present. This does it. As well as actually dealing with some of the practical stuff about what it would actually be to settling on Mars. So if you want to check something out, it's on Netflix, streaming on Netflix. It's just called Mars. Look for the one. There's other ones that are called Mars too as well, where are these like little crappy documentaries. This one is done National Geographic on Netflix. It's really fantastic. I would highly recommend it for my space loving friends out there. Couple of news in the free will brewing area. We got 3 new additions this week. Well, 2 of them are kind of returns, right? But they're kind of newly released once again. You got the DDH Love Letter from the 90s, which has to be one of my favorites of one of their standard production ones. This is a hazy IPA brewed with flaked oats, flaked corn, and milk sugar. And then it's double dry hopped with Galaxy Citra Mosaic. Creamy smooth with notes of tangerine, passion fruit, mango, and papaya. Comes in at 7.2 ABV. And really it is the creaminess of it is one thing that was one of the first things that surprised me when I first had that one. Second one, you've heard me talk about this too as well. You got another round of Garcia's Forest out. That is a hazy IPA brewed once again with flaked oats and then wheat and hopped with Citra Mosaic and Chinook. A bit of a cross between New Age IPAs and classic West Coast renditions. This one is a full-on body and flavor with notes of dank grapefruit, tangelo, white peach, and honeydew melon. Comes in at 7.1 ABV, and I can't say enough about that one too as well. As these are 2, I wish they would be around all the time, frankly, because they're just great. Now they have a brand new hazy IPA, which is called Parish. They've been getting really dark in their like beer naming lately. Right? It's been interesting. But Parish, and this is the brand new hazy IPA. It is brewed with plenty of flaked oats, flaked wheat for a body, then dry hopped extensively with a stellar combo of Galaxy and Enigma. Notes of ripe tropical fruit, raspberry, and dry citrusy white wine grapes. Comes in at 7.4 ABV. Again, I have not had this one, can't tell you, but I'm definitely going to get some for this weekend because I have a feeling I'm going to need it next week. I still have some of the sharing size, which I believe there's still some available at their online store. The sharing size is just absolutely outstanding and stellar. If you have to choose, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but they have one that is an almond joy version, right? I'm forgetting the thing, but it's like, you'll see it's a coconut one. It's great. It's great. I mean, last year when they came out with them, they had this peanut butter one, which like surprised the hell out of me and I thought was fantastic. This year, for whatever reason, it's hitting me right. The one with the coconut, is spectacular. Those are a little heavier, right? And that's what you got to have kind of sitting around in case things go really south on election night. That's all I'm saying. But Ronnie, you can go to freewillbrewing.store. That's freewillbrewing.store. And you can kind of like order online, go pick it up at the Percy Brewery, main brewery in Percy, or you can have it shipped directly to any PA address. And if you hit that $85 or more threshold, they'll ship it to you for free. So, Sean, anything else you want to kind of throw into the mix?
Thinking about it. Bought a new shirt again this week, so I'm looking forward to that coming in.
Bought a new shirt.
But I am slowly like over. I actually need like good clothes. Like if I'm going to, I was doing photography stuff and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like if I'm showing up to a photo shoot, I don't want to show up in like jeans and a band hoodie anymore. You know, like so. I'm getting more respectable stuff.
Well, I was surprised that you told me. The one thing that surprised me about that, you were telling me you bought that new shirt, was that I didn't realize. I didn't realize that you actually shopped at Brooks Brothers. So.
I've been getting so I bought a pink shirt from Bonobos or whatever. Bonobos. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was able to like find a 20% off coupon online. So I was like, okay, I'll like fork up the money for the shirt, and then I signed up my work email for my email as a refer a friend. So next month, I'll get a 25% coupon and get another shirt. So
Sean's always on the grift, man. Always
I am gaming the system.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. That's
so
great.
I am definitely gaming the system here. I think I might actually get two 25% off coupons. One for my personal email.
You get a coupon, and you get a coupon.
So no, I've been slowly like upgrading my wardrobe. So Eagles play this week. So where am I?
I was just gonna say, so you'll see you're upgrading. You got your Eagles shirt on, so that's not really an upgrade these days, but that's okay. All right, go ahead.
So I went to bed last week after they went down 11 with like 6 minutes to go.
Yeah. And
I woke up. I was like, watch them like have somehow like fucking won this game. And I look at my phone. And I saw it was 22-21. And I was like, motherfucker.
Why did I go to bed?
But it was also like kind of like happy that I went to bed. I was just like, I would not have like at this point I just didn't care because that's how bad they're playing this year.
Yeah.
But this weekend they're playing the Cowboys with their third string quarterback Don Vanucci or something like that. Like, and then they also have like the worst defense in football. So Eagles by 40.
Eagles by 40?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, look, I got to say is that, whatever's left of my with my football fandom, when I used to love football, but I have it's just whatever. I'm a Steelers fan, so I also hate the Cowboys, right? Had been a Steelers fan, but I'll tell you, it started with when Ben Roethlisberger got brought up on those kind of charges that said that he had rapey. I was like, you know what? And the fact, and it was really, look, there's horrible people, there's no doubt about it, but the fact that the team, the lead, did virtually nothing, I was like, whatever. I'm just, I get disgusted.
And at least like now we're in a different time and period with this. I mean, like I feel like there should have been consequences, but we are at a point with the Me Too movement and the conversations, you know what I mean? To where like there's going to be retribution with this stuff.
Yeah. Keep it going. It's good. Well, hey.
No, but
you got anything planned for the weekend? I mean, other than kind of trying to kind of like not go insane, not kind of like let the anxiety and stress of all this.
I have a couple of phone calls actually this weekend.
Oh, do you really?
Calls. Yeah, we are.
Oh, organizing calls? I thought you meant like special calls, somebody to help you get something for something or something.
I already got that something. I'm ready for. I'm prepared for that.
All right, it's good. You gotta. Hey, look. Hey, there's. It's so important to have a stock pantry. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I mean, like it's get out the vote time. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could not like this past month. Like I checked my fucking budget the other day. I couldn't believe I spent it was like $292 on food in a month. I did not know how like that happened.
Well, if you start with one thing, it leads to another. Is all I'm going to say. That's why I couldn't resist. But yeah, that's like when Sean put that. That's why we got the introduction we did for today, because like Sean put that on tweet. Like he's like tweets that out there. I can't believe I spent $300 on that. I was like, well, you get the munchies after a while. And you got to get yourself some food.
No, my food budget is usually like $500-$600 a month between takeout and stuff like that. I mean, so like I can't believe like, and people are like, what the fuck were you eating? Like cardboard pasta or something all month? Like I feel like that's pretty good. I mean, I spend like $60 a week on groceries, and that's about it. I just haven't been, the restaurants are closed,
right?
The bars are closed.
Well, no, it's remarkable is once you kind of realize, eating out is expensive. There's no doubt about it. But
it's like I've been keeping like a long-term chart of my like food expenses going back from beginning of January 19.
Mm-hmm.
To like map out, and like there was a point of the summer I spent like $1,200 a month last summer by just like eating out. Like
I can remember, it's like every day. It's like Sean's like wings at Midtown. Yep.
But no, I mean like it's good like not eating out all the time. So I've been making some cool stuff lately.
Cool, man. Well, hey, like take it easy this week. I mean, I know it's gonna be hard to say take it easy, but take care of yourself this weekend and
rest up, drink water,
exactly,
stay hydrated, get ready.
And to remind everybody, Sean will be back on Monday because we got that special pre-election roundtable. That's Monday's
thanks, I almost forgot about it.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
I'll keep. Believe me, I'll keep on reminding you of it. Right? You have like in the morning, like Sean, where the hell are? Oh shit! I've totally forgot about it. Don't worry, you don't have to do any. You don't have to write anything. You don't have to put anything in. It's like that's it. It's it. Right?
It's a lot less than I do now.
Exactly. Yeah. Barely. No, but like so it should be a good conversation, right? The whole idea is like again, we're going to do more of these kind of as the year progresses, where we're going to have some roundtables every once in a while. Ideally, I'd love to have one like once a month with different folks come on, talk about something. But Sean will be here. We got Shayna Rose. She's a climate justice activist and host of the podcast Sustaining with Shayna. She was actually instrumental when we were building some of the original coalitions around the Healthy Campus Bill of Rights at Kutztown University. She came on as one of one of the folks who's kind of helping build those connections with climate justice folks. She's actually a graduate of Kutztown too as well. I didn't know her. She was at Kutztown. We were afterwards, but she's phenomenal. So I think it's gonna be a great addition. She got a great podcast too as well. Sustaining with Shayna, which I'll put kind of a link down there. If, as a reminder, you'll get to we'll be talking about that on Monday too as well. And then we got Leo Atkinson, who's one of the new co-chairs of the Lehigh Valley DSA. Always looking for those. If you remember, we talked about this in the podcast way back in January or February, is that we were right on this threshold where I thought we were going to be able to do some expansion with working some folks with Lehigh Valley DSA, incorporating more on the podcast and some writing and things like this. I got off to a little bit of a slower start than I would have liked to. Got busy at the beginning of the semester, and then freaking COVID hit, which just threw everything for a loop. And so finally kind of getting back with this, they've had they have elections and everything like this. You got to, I've never met Leo before. I haven't talked about this stuff, but we and I have been back and forth a little bit. It's like really cool stuff. He's excited to be on too as well. So we'll be here. We'll be talking about, kind of our last hot takes, I guess, before the election. But more importantly, what happens after the polls close, right? And both terms of the short term, but what's going to be necessary to happen for next week. But then for the long term, we set out a kind of more progressive left-leaning agenda for the state. So
Scott Perry just put a thing up against communism on his Facebook page, and I left.
Where'd he get the graphic from?
I said, you hate communism, but you love stealing photos from freelancers in your district. Pay up, Scott.
Nice. Gotta call him a freeloader. That photo wasn't no handout, Scott. So, well, all right. Well, hey everybody. Once again, we're going to kind of leave you with Jonathan Mann. Go check him out. Jonathan Mann on Twitter, at Jonathan Mann with 2 N's at the end. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We're going to see you on Monday for Out to Coop Live. Until then, everybody, take care.